Hello, everybody. I'm very excited about today's video. It's something that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time. And it's something that is a bit of an irritation for me when I watch different shows on TV. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine. And so today's video is going to be about bringing the haunted back home with you. And as a couple where we go out all the time and do a lot of exploration and go on these different adventures regarding, even if it's with Sasquatch or if it's looking in cemeteries, or if we know there's a haunted location or whatever, we will do our part in trying to be safe when it comes to going to these locations. There's a lot to be said about looking for spirits, ghosts, poltergeists, oh gosh, shadow people, shadow blobs, and shadow spiders too. I mean, there's a lot to be said for shadow people, but a lot of people don't know that there's blobs and these weird blob beings that are in the corners of doorways, or spiders. And I've actually seen one in my home back in Albuquerque where it just kind of ran across the floor towards one of our dogs, and I got very concerned for our dog, so I made a move. But they're around, and of course I did my part in getting rid of it. But people have to understand that when you go to these different locations, or you just want to go have fun and you want to go and see if you can get scared, well, most of the time, yeah, you're gonna have fun. You're gonna get scared, but it's I'd say the 5–10% of the time when people actually go and do something and then they bring it back home with them and they don't even know it. And that's what I want to talk about, is because you need to understand that you're peering into the paranormal or into the black abyss and trying to see what's out there, whether it's an entity or it's a ghost, or if it's some kind of shadow person or strange creature, whatever. And these things are looking back at you, and I call them opportunists because a lot of them are looking in locations, looking for people who are going to different locations, and they're waiting for a ride home. And they will attach to people and they will come home with you, and then they will make themselves at home. I call them squatters. And then you're going to have to get rid of them. And when you get scared and when you're not even safe in your own home, that becomes a problem. I am mistress in my own home, and nothing is allowed to come in here to take my sanctuary and my peace of mind away. So I think it's really important for people to understand that when you go to locations, you have to respect where these things are existing. So if I'm in my home and I don't want these things in my home, I will make them leave. And I'm very lucky. I haven't had many spirits or problems in many, many years, because I take care of business. When I go to a location, or anybody goes to a location, and we disrespect where these things exist at, live at, whatever you want to call it, you have to understand that you have to go under those same rules too. That when you go to these locations, you have to pay respect. And a lot of people who go into locations, when it's on TV or if it's on YouTube, who want to get a good scare, they don't understand that these things are dealing with a lot of people who are doing it all the time. And they scream and they yell and they run. And I mean, let's be honest, if I was a spirit residing in a haunted house or whatever, and I had quite a few paranormal investigators coming in, and every time they asked me to give them a sign or talk to them or do whatever, make a knock, like a lot of people want knocks and want to be touched. And I did exactly what they said. And then once I do it, then they get all scared and freaked out and they start running. Pretty soon I'm going to get really irritated and tired, and I'm just going to want to have them leave. And any other groups that come in, I'm probably going to try to scare them and get them out of there. And then you kind of create a hostile situation, because these things get tired of people coming into locations all the time, doing the same thing, screaming and getting scared, wanting a sign, then getting it, and then freaking out because they got it. So if you go and you do this and you're very serious about it, you just have to have a good mindset before you even go. It's not about getting scared. It's not about getting the latest cool video of something scary so you can get a lot of likes or a lot of people watching your video. It's not, and it shouldn't be about that. It should, if you're going to do this type of, I don't even want to, it's just something, it's not a pastime. If it's something that you're passionate about, then be serious about it, is what I'm trying to say, because I'm very serious about it. I happen to be one of those people where the paranormal, it was in me, and I was just born with paranormal happening to me ever since I was a child. And I want to talk about that because I think there's a lot of people that have the paranormal not attached to them, but inside them. And so they're more prevalent to having paranormal activity around them, or they're more sensitive to it when they go to locations. And I think that's where your empaths and your psychics come in. It's just we just have that ability to see past the veil and to be able to go into locations and kind of see what's going on. Sometimes things happen to us. I mean, Michael and I had a few things happen to us. I thought I was prepared. The paranormal has no rules. There's no guidelines. There's no rule book on what will happen to you once you're starting on this journey, because once you start looking into all things paranormal, you start attracting paranormal to you as well. And people who are in this field understand that. This is something that we all experience. So I wanted to talk about the idea of the reality shows in movies, because they give this idea that evil lives forever and that it doesn't go away and you can't get rid of it. And that's baloney. That's just ridiculous. I mean, there's a constant battle on this planet for good and evil. And it's just the way it is. Just like there's light, there's dark. And just like there's dawn, there's the evening twilight, where you have different aspects of the yin and the yang. And I think we have to understand that when we're dealing with the paranormal. So, you have your different aspects of the reality of what these two things are. Your light and the good and the dark and the bad, but not everything in the dark is bad. And that's what I want to get across to everybody. I love dawn, I love dusk, and that's just, I love them both. I loved when I worked cattle, when I was able to get up in the morning, just right when the songbirds were coming out. And I love dusk. I love that when that sunset in New Mexico, when it just comes down, it's orange and yellow, and it's just amazing. There's different aspects to everything that we all love. Now, the one thing that I think is important to express here is the fact that there's different shades of gray in between the angels and the demons. There is just not, I get so tired of these reality shows where people who don't understand the paranormal automatically think something's a demon, and it's not a demon. There's different types of beings and entities, such as dregs. Dregs are a different type of entity, beings who don't have the best interest of humans, and they create havoc. And they're the ones that actually are confused with demons, because I'm going to tell you right off the bat, demons have better things to do than to constantly being out there and scaring humans. They don't like humans. They don't have our best interest at heart. Um, they are very arrogant. They are the type of beings that will come in and probably do damage every once in a while to somebody who they feel will make the greatest impact. And I think biblical times, in the Bible, different aspects of what happened with Jesus, I think different historical figures have experienced something coming at them and scary. Just throughout our history of man and womankind, there's every once in a while been stories and been experiences where it was obvious that was a demon. But there are pissed off spirits who just don't want to go. There's nasty, mean people who died who are going to stick around, and they're going to try to create havoc for whoever's coming around. There is poltergeists who just like to play games and practical jokes and get reactions out of people. There are spirits who do need help, and those are the ones that get caught in the middle of all this other crud, because if they need help, people are too scared to help them move on. So that's why a lot of mediums and psychics and empaths are called in, medicine men, medicine women, to try to help move along whatever spirit needs help. There's residual hauntings that I think just are imprinted in our time frame, into the walls of and the floors, the ground, the trees, everything, until I think it eventually fades out. But I think it takes a long time for it to fade out. But I think it's important to understand that you can come across anything when you go into a location that is haunted. And I don't like it when on certain reality shows the people call out aggressively to spirits. And that's not the way to get a reaction out of a spirit, especially when you don't know what it is you're coming into, going to its home turf and expecting it to respond to you because you demand it, is stupid. And it's just not the way that it works. There's what we go by here on this planet, in this reality, as human beings, in communicating with each other, is entirely a different matter when it comes to the paranormal. The paranormal is not going to respect the guidelines that we have. And if I go and walk into a store and ask somebody a question, I expect them to answer me. But that doesn't necessarily mean that if I go into a haunted location and I ask a spirit to if I say hello and I ask them to respond back to me, that they're going to do it. It's like, who the hell are you? If somebody just walked into my home and said, oh, hey, I'm going to sit here in your chair, I'm going, I don't think so. I didn't invite you here. So we're already not invited in these locations. Now, it's different when you go into a home where there's a problem and you've been invited by the people who live there. And my sister Happy and I used to go in New Mexico and do house cleansings for people who had spirits who sometimes followed them from other locations. One gal, her brother, he was living in a haunted apartment, and he told the spirit to go haunt his sister instead of him. And lo and behold, it did. And she could see him in the mirror. She couldn't see him straight on. She could see him in her peripheral vision, but she could see the spirit in her mirror. And so he's creating a lot of problems for her family. And so you have to be careful what you say to these beings and these spirits as well. And we're not in high school where it's just all cute and fun. And it is that way for a lot of people until they actually have a problem, and then they actually have to deal with it. It's not fun. The one thing that I did with my sister that I think is really important, especially for people who do go in homes and do cleansings, first you have to be asked by the person who is living there. And then you have to understand what the cleansing is for. There's different types of cleansings that you do for specific reasons. For the woman who wanted to get rid of the spirit, a lot of what I ask people to do is they have to do it with me because it's their home. They have to tell the entity or the spirit to leave. So when you do these cleansings, you have to get the people who live there to participate in the cleansing. I think what's really important is you can't fight these things, or you can't battle them in fear. If fear is a weapon, is basically a wet noodle. It just isn't going to work. And you're dealing with something that can manipulate objects, and you're dealing with something that can actually make something disappear and reappear somewhere else, knock stuff over, mess with your animals, mess with you, make horrible noises or whatever. You're dealing with something that is an entirely different set of rules, and the end game is not the same. So even though you know that, still in this reality we have dominion. And I have known this. I was born knowing this. I think in my years training to be a medicine woman, that's the one thing that was made very clear to me, that we have the say so here. And so I know that if I tell something to leave in my home, it's got to go. And I try to talk to people about that, and that they really have to mean it. You can't be asking something to leave if you're afraid, because you're asking out of fear and it knows it. And so it just enjoys it even more, and it's not going to go. Now I can make it go, and I can say, you get the heck out of here, because I'm usually not afraid. There has been times I have been afraid. And I've really had to calm myself down, because sometimes I've been in situations where it was extremely scary. But most of the time, I just say, you're going to get out of here. But in order to keep whatever out, the people who live there have to ask it to leave and mean it. Just have enough, and the spirits have to go. And there's different types of cleansings where you use sage, and you use different prayers and different blessings. And you can use holy water, you can use crosses, you can use anything that a person believes in, because it may not be somebody who is Christian. It could be somebody who's Buddhist, or somebody who's Muslim. Whoever is scared and concerned, you can use whatever they believe in, their religion, to get rid of this, whatever it is that's in the home. But one thing that I did with my sister that was really important is, whenever I would go into a home with her, I would have her be my ground. So that means that I tried to have two people who were pillars, so that if anything happened, they could pull me out of a room or situation, because I usually will go into, I'll try to walk around the house by myself, and I will go into a room by myself, especially the room that's supposed to be haunted, so I can get a good idea of what something is about. And I can maybe hear what the spirit has to say. If the spirit is making a lot of noise because it needs help, then I need to know that. But if there's something in a room that, and I usually can feel it in my gut too, if something's pretty scary, and I'll have my sister stand in the doorway, one leg in, one leg out. That way she's able to kind of run in and grab me if something happens. And so I think it's important never to do this stuff by yourself. You always have somebody with you when you're doing a cleansing, if that's what you're inclined to do. So now let's get into the different stories that I have of when something actually came home with Michael and I. And as a couple, a paranormal couple, we go and do a lot of stuff. And when we go and investigate a location, it's always made aware to us that something could follow us back home. And sometimes, you may not even think about something following you back home, or maybe you did everything possible to keep it from happening, and it happens. it just is part of this field, you know, part of the paranormal. And I think even with cryptid research, and I think that you could have something follow you home even then too. So it's just part of what this is all about. So this is kind of a video about kind of what we've done to correct situations and how we live through it, because you know it's a little scary when you're going through all this stuff. I think I'll start off with my trip to Egypt. I went to Egypt in the early 90s, and I was told by different medicine people that I really shouldn't go because as a person studying the medicine way, they felt that at that point, because I was in my 20s, that I might be a little too open, and I might be more susceptible to something negative happening to me. But I didn't listen, and I went, and I'm very glad I didn't listen, because I had amazing experiences. But it doesn't mean that stuff didn't happen to me. Egypt is the place of sorcery. It's the place of magic and enchantment. And so what I experienced there was pretty phenomenal. I think the fact I went into the pyramids, I think the fact that I climbed one of the Queen's pyramids, which you're not supposed to, and I don't recommend you doing it, but I did it with a friend of mine. I had missing time, and then I was around a lot of ancient locations that I eventually, and knowing better too, going to some locations, like even climbing one of the Queen's pyramids, was not the brightest thing to do, because at that point, that's when we had 2 hours of missing time. But eventually, when you go to all the temples, and we went to Luxor, and went to Aswan, and went to the Valley of the Kings and Queens, we just went everywhere that you could possibly go and get your fix of the Egyptians and how they lived. And when I was there, I noticed that I was immediately because we were walking all the time, I had lost so much weight. And I tried to eat really well, and no matter how much I ate, and no matter what I did to stay safe eating, because I didn't just go out and eat food off the street, I made sure that I either made my own food, or I went to restaurants where I knew the food was really it was more towards my palate. So by the time I came back, I was there for over 3 months. I mean, it was many months. So I was there for quite a while. I was there, I came back, and I went back again. So I think in total, it was like about somewhere between 3 to 6 months. I can't remember exactly how many months I was there. When I came back, I was 100 pounds. And when I came back, my family saw me and they said I looked like I was dying. And I was dying, because something had attached to me, a dark mass, an entity. And Kelly had seen this, and he said, you have got to go get some help. And I had gone to see the doctor. And what was really interesting about that is he said, oh, well, maybe you have parasites or whatever, because I know probably everybody's thinking she had parasites or whatever. So I got tested. They did everything they could to check and see what was wrong with me, and came to find out that I was healthy as a horse, and the doctor didn't know what was wrong with me. But I was eating all the time and drained all the time, completely drained. I mean, just to get out of bed was just horrible. I just couldn't get out of bed. So Kelly had seen a black mass attached to my right shoulder. And I noticed that when I was walking that I was bent forward, and I noticed that I was hunched, and I felt like something was attached to my back. So this thing was literally just on me. And it was just sucking the life force out of me, eating off of me as it was hanging on me. Think of it kind of like oh, like a little monkey on my a dark mass monkey on my right shoulder that was just, munching on me as, it got hungry. So we got in contact with a medicine man named Thomas One-Wolf. And Thomas saw me and he said, well, it's obvious. I agree with Kelly because Kelly saw it. He could see it on me because he was a medicine man as well. And so I did a vision quest, and we did a sweat first. So I actually, before all of that, I had to get prepared for that. So I didn't have a lot of time for preparation because they believed that I only had a couple of months to live. And I think they were right. So I did it. I had to do a bunch of tobacco ties. I had to go find my location to do my vision quest. And then the day of my vision quest, it was I believe the Apache way, where you have no food or water. You just go out and you just do your thing and you find answers. And I had to kind of like battle this thing. Even though I didn't have the physical energy of my body, I was going to battle it spiritually. So I went in, we did it the sweat lodge first. And so Thomas actually had me prepare to go into the spiritual world. And so the sweat was to actually do that transition. So and let me tell you something, when you don't have a lot of energy and you're dealing with that heat, I felt like my face was going to burn off me because it was so hot. But it was that transition part that I think saved my life. So then I was escorted to where I picked my spot to do my vision quest. And, it was 3 days, 3 nights or whatever. And I slept through almost all of it. I slept. And the one thing that really happened that I realized I needed was I needed the sun. The sun was key because I had actually found a spot around a bunch of trees that was in the shade. And I actually left that sacred spot and I went and found the sun. And I knew that talking about these ancient deities, I knew the sun god Ra was going to actually heal me. I just knew it. I knew that's what I had to do. And so that's what I did. So by the time Thomas came to get me, I was like a new person. I actually, the night before they came to get me that morning, I was awake and I just couldn't go to sleep. I was renewed, I had energy, and whatever this thing was, it got off me. Thank God. And so when Thomas came to get me and I was escorted back, we went back into the sweat lodge to bring me back from the spirit world into the real world. And then we had a celebration. And from that moment on, I started gaining weight and I was renewed. But that was an extreme thing to do because something was attached to me. And that's what I was warned about, that, because of who I was, being a medicine woman, that something might see me and go, oh, well, I'll go eat her or go munch on her. So when you go to ancient locations, you have to be prepared for the fact that something might attach itself to you. And that's why you need to be prepared. And so I think that after that experience, at any location that I went to that I knew was old, I did a prayer and I did a ceremony before I would go, because you have to. You just have to prepare yourself, and you have to tell your spirit guides and anything that surrounds you, that is taking care of you, your spirit guides, your guardian angels, loved ones, ancient ones, whoever is around you, just ask them to protect you and to keep these things from attaching to you. Because when this thing attached to me, it was nuts. And the really cool thing about it was that when they came to get me that morning, after I felt renewed and wonderful, I was standing straight back up. and I didn't have a heavy weight on me. And that's when I knew that this thing was gone. So I was really grateful for that. But it had to do with being in the sun. And then, of course, I believe Thomas One and Thunderbolt actually helping me get rid of this thing. And that can happen. So I brought it home with me. And this thing didn't want anybody else. It just wanted me. And I think that that can happen to people. They can go to these ancient locations and this stuff can happen because it happened to me. And from what I understand from talking to different medicine people, this happens. And a lot of what they have to get off of people to get them healthy again is these entities that attach to people. So it's something to think about. So next, what I wanted to talk about is Skinwalker Ranch. And Skinwalker Ranch was something that had intrigued me for quite a while before Michael and I moved to Utah. It's something that I thought, well, one day I'm going to go there. And it wasn't that I went to Skinwalker Ranch because I was wanting to experience something really scary. It was just like a drive, some kind of internal drive for me to get out there, because I just sensed that there was something there that wanted to communicate with me. Maybe something out there was trying to entice me there to the ranch. I don't know. Who knows? But Michael and I, once we got to Utah, once we got settled in, we did take a trip out there. And the one thing that I will say about Skinwalker Ranch is if you go to this ranch and you expect something amazing to happen right off the bat, you're going to be disappointed, because the landscape is open, it's rocky, it's part of the reservation out there, the Ute reservation, I believe. It's just a landscape that is nondescript. It's very high desert, and the sky was beautiful. That nothing happened that was out of the ordinary. The one thing that I will say is that I expected something to happen. I mean, I don't know why I did, but I did. And I think that I felt I was being called to the ranch, and actually I was. So the one thing about going there is it's just kind of nondescript. It's not that I didn't get a feeling that something crazy was happening there. It's just that the paranormal is really particular. It's got its own timing. If there's anything anywhere, they may not be around. I just believe the paranormal is another reality, another dimension parallel to this one, where you're not always going to get the type of experiences that you expect. And I was kind of disappointed. We were there a couple hours. It took a couple hours to get there. But before we went, we did what everybody should do. We did a sage. We saged each other, and we did a little ceremony, and made sure that we were prepared spiritually to go and see what happened on this ranch. Well, we went, not much happened. We were there for 2 hours. The only thing that was really kind of incredible was this dragonfly stuck by Michael and me for an hour. I mean, or for a long time, it seemed like the whole time we were there, this dragonfly was there. So who knows? It could have been a mechanical dragonfly or something, something that artificial intelligence. Who knows what it was? But anyways, that was the only thing that we saw that was pretty interesting. And I'm trying to figure out in my head kind of how to say all of this. So I hope I'm not going too slow. Anyways, nothing happened. We go home. And before we get home, we actually do another cleansing in case something was going to follow us from there to the house. We thought, well, we'll just do another cleansing and take care of that. And so we got home. Michael pulls into the garage, and I open the door, and someone says, "Hello, I'm Amadeus." And hold on a second. Rocky. Sorry, my dog was having a bad dream. So anyways, the spirit said, or this entity said, "Hello, I'm Amadeus." And I looked around because it was in my ear. And I said, "Michael, did you say something?" He said, "No." I said, "Somebody just talked to me and said they were, hello, I'm Amadeus." And he said, "I didn't hear anything." And then after that, another very dark voice said, "Hello, I'm Antioch." And I'm like, what? Who are these people? What, entities, whatever. So we go into the house, and I said, "You won't believe this, but I heard somebody say, 'Hello, I'm Amadeus.' And then like a few minutes later, someone said, 'Hello, I'm Antioch.'" Well, come to find out that they did follow us home. See, because the paranormal doesn't have fence lines. It's not controlled by borders. The paranormal is this whole planet. The paranormal is just exists everywhere. So these beings followed us home. So we went over to where they lived. So they decided to follow us to where we lived. And so come to find out that Amadeus is an earthbound angel, and that Antioch was a jinn, and that there's a natural portal on the ranch. And they told me about it, and they told me where it's located. Now, once they did this, I thought, well, I have this information. So I think I did try to contact George Knapp. And I think we did try to contact Bigelow. And this is before he sold the ranch, but we didn't get a response. So I think George Knapp said he'd get back to me later, and he never did. Probably thought I was a crazy person. And that's another problem that people like me have, is that we will get information, and because I'm not famous or well known, or because I'm not out there trying to make my 5 minutes of fame, whatever, nobody listens to me. And yeah, that's okay. So anyways, I like the fact that Amadeus contacted me first, because Amadeus was my saving grace, because Antioch just was very, very impatient and actually kind of rude. But Antioch wanted to talk to me, not just necessarily about the ranch, but he wanted to talk to me about the jinn. And so what he told me is not like in biblical terms, and not like I had heard about the jinn. So Antioch kept telling me, "Look, I want to talk with you." And I hesitated because I know the jinn don't like people, humans. They just don't like humans. And I thought, well, I don't think I'm going to do this. So what I ended up doing is, to bide my time, trying to figure out, well, am I going to let them talk? Am I not? I drew pictures of them. And this is how I see Amadeus. And I'm going to try to do this. I don't know if you can see. I'm trying to get the glare off of it. But this is Amadeus, and Amadeus doesn't really have male or female features. Amadeus has the kind of body like shoulders and head of a human, but no facial features, nothing, and I didn't see any legs. So this is really how I saw Amadeus. This is how I saw Antioch, and Antioch is a little scary looking. And Antioch just wasn't going to let things rest. He wasn't going to let things go. So once I drew Antioch and Amadeus, I put their drawings up in in a folder and up on a shelf. And one day, I think it was in the afternoon, all of a sudden, my printer, which was underneath my desk, turned itself on and printed out an image of Antioch. And now I didn't have my printer on and I didn't have the picture in there. He put the picture in there and he printed out another image of him because he wanted me to remember, he wanted to remind me that he wanted to talk to me. So it scared me because, you know, when my printer just turns on and I'm at the house by myself, it's a little scary. So anyways, I went, oh my God. So I thought to myself, I think I must have left this picture in there. And, you know, your rational mind tries to to make things seem normal because you don't want to even think that this might be supernatural. And then what he would do is he would play with my Katina dolls, and I had quite a few on a shelf, and he'd turn them in different positions. He liked to do that. I don't know why. And so I'd have to go turn them back, and I'd be wondering, you know, did a truck go by that shook the row, shook the shelf? Did we, you know? And that wasn't the case. I mean, these things never moved before that, and they didn't move after I actually took care of what I needed to take care of. So he did it a second time. He turned the printer on, but it was late at night, and what was really weird is that the image of the drawing came in a little picture window on the printer, and I didn't even know my printer could do that. So this image comes on the little window on my printer. Well, first off, my printer turns itself on. This little image of Antioch comes up on this little window and then prints out another image of himself. And so I took the picture, I put it in a file, and I put it in a shelf, and I closed the door, or in a drawer. I closed the door and I put stuff on top of it, and I went, no. And Michael, he saw me do it, so he's like, no, I know where it is. And so that probably happened probably a couple of days before this last incident. I went one night I was closing up the house, and I took a late shower, and the dogs and Michael were all asleep. And I went in and did my shower. And I remember thinking in the shower, I'm just not going to communicate with Antioch. I'm just not going to do it. No, I'm going to just forget this. I'm not going to let him talk to me. No. And so I realized, that feels good. So I just, it was a realization that, no, I can't let this happen. So I get out of the shower, I get ready for bed. I get into bed. I just put my head down on the pillow when the shower caddy gets lifted up. This is what we figured out what happened. It got lifted up off the shower and thrown in the shower on the floor. And it was such a huge noise that the cats and the dogs jumped up, and Michael woke up, and I basically jumped out of bed, and shampoo, conditioner, soaps, all that were on the floor. And so the shower head was about this big. So it wasn't like, and it was still on there. So it wasn't like the shower caddy just slipped off. It would have had to have been lifted up, because we tried it different ways of how this could have fallen off. And so Michael said, this can't happen. And, you know, Michael will figure it out if he can. And it just got picked up and thrown. So I decided to talk with Antioch after that. And I said, look, I will talk to you, but then you're going to go and you're going to leave me alone, because I don't like this kind of crap. I don't like it at all. And so then I had a discussion with Antioch, and he told me about the Jinn, and he told me about his kind. They're very archaic. They were created at the same time as the archangels. He said that they have a relationship with the archangels, that they're a different type of being, and that no, they don't like humans. And that's what made me uncomfortable, is I knew he didn't like humans. He said that for their history and for what they were created for, they oppose everything about humans. They don't like humans at all. They don't care if they're called demons, because they could care less. But they are a different type of entity than a demon, and that's just what he told me. And he could say, Rainbow, he's full of baloney, he's a demon, blah blah blah. But after he talked with me, and I wrote down information that he gave me, he left. And Amadeus could have stayed. I didn't care. I liked Amadeus, so I thought, you can stay. But they actually were guardians of this portal that's on Skinwalker Ranch. So that's kind of where they reside. And from what I understand, this particular portal on Skinwalker Ranch is one of the natural portals on the planet. There's many on the planet, but these portals are important because beings can come in dimensionally, UFOs can come in, creatures can come in that actually know how to use these portals. Artificial portals are another story. They're not good for this planet. That'll be another video. And the portal information came to me by a Sasquatch named Loki. And so that'll be another video. But Antioch and Amadeus are the guardians of this particular portal. And I think every portal on this planet has some type of guardian around it that watches it and takes care of it and knows what's going and coming. And the portal, it goes down into the ground, it goes up for miles up into the sky, and it's a certain length of this rocky ledge, this upper area on the ranch that they showed me. I wish I could go so I could do my research and probably have more communication with them. But I think that with going to Skinwalker Ranch, we did bring something home with us unintentionally. And even though I had the experiences with Antioch that, he was messing with stuff and knocking stuff off shelves until he got my attention, for me, it was something I could handle. And it was something that I was willing to battle with, to take care of. But it wasn't like he was trying to ruin my life. For a couple of weeks there, it was scary, but I was able to handle that. And I think that's something that people have to understand, that, you may not think anything happened in the location that you went to. People have said, oh, nothing happened, but it could easily happen back in your home. And that's what people don't think about. So I think that's really important. So the next, another way that things can kind of come home with you is when they see you and they want to communicate with you. And if you're not an empath, and if it's somebody who's scared of that kind of stuff, and somebody tries to contact you, it can be kind of scary. But sometimes when you go to locations, you will come across beings and they will either decide to communicate with you or not. And I usually go to a location with Michael, never assuming I'm going to ever have any contact with anything. I just don't do it. But we went to a specific area another place I wanted to go to, which was Dugway Proving Grounds. And it was an area over by, by the Ghost Chute Reservation in the Twila County. And it's an area that they call Skull Valley. And I liked it because it reminded me a lot of home in New Mexico. It was really almost like being in New Mexico. Now, in this location, there was some beings, and I never found out their names. They were just like beings. And they told me that if Michael and I went back out there, that we could actually get some really cool photographs. And the photographs, unfortunately, are on Michael's camera, and I didn't have time to blow them up before this video. But anyways, I do have a drawing of the beings that talked to me, and I did write about it in Paranormal Underground magazine. Michael got the idea for the what they were, what they traveled in. He called the plasma photon vehicles. And this location, from what I understood from these beings, they were actually living there underground, and they were in contact with humans. And I don't know if they, at that point in time, were actually working with humans down at Dugway or not. But I do know they were around in that area. So this is what they look like. Oh, let's see, try to get it the best way I can. Oh, there we go. I think that's better. Oh, if I tilt it down. So that's what they look like. And you can see they don't look like grays. They're very, very different. They're very tiny. They're not even, I'd say they're maybe 2 feet tall. They're not tall at all. The grays are 3 feet and higher, but these guys are shorter. And anyways, we went, and I took the camera, and in fact, I wasn't quite sure where I should focus the camera, whatever. And Michael just finally said, look, Rainbow, just do it. Just go out there and take the pictures. So I did. And we got some really interesting photos that particular day. And I was really surprised that in many photographs, these light anomalies actually came about. Now here's some of them. And let's see if I do that. I'm trying to get the glare off. So this one in particular, it's a red streak with this white ball at the very end of it, this glowing ball. It's probably the most amazing. This is the last photograph that I took. And then this is some other anomalies that just came through on the camera. Now, the day that I took the photographs, it was probably cloudy. As you can see, it's cloudy, or you can't see, I should say. But the sun wasn't really out, and so we were trying to figure out. Well, okay, if this happened this day, this way, then we'll come back, because what you have to do when you do stuff like this, you have to debunk yourself. And so a couple weeks later, we went back out, same type of day. And because Michael's a kind of a weatherman, so he said, well, this day is going to be the closest to what we experienced before when you took those photographs. We went out, same time, same kind of a cloud cover, and could not get anything. And they didn't communicate with me to come out there and take the photos. So I realized that, well, okay, this was a one-time deal. They told me to come out there and do it. And it was really interesting that they did. Now, I didn't have a lot of communication with them after that, but Skull Valley is very unusual. It's almost, I think that the new phrase for it is it's the new Area 51, because a lot of orbs and UFOs are seen there that are unusual. And if you want to go, if people wanted to go out there and see different types of spacecraft or UFOs, that's a good location to go to outside of the actual Area 51. But anyways, that's why I wanted to go, not specifically for, sky watching and checking out UFOs. It was really more about the land itself, because I'm the kind of person that I want to feel the energy of the land itself. And so these beings sensed it, they knew it. And so they contacted me after our first trip. So again, that was a contact, and that was something that I did bring home with me, because I drove Michael nuts to go back out there, because I said, look, these beings, and I showed him the drawing. They want us to go out there. And so he finally said, yeah, let's do it. So, okay. So here's a good, I wanted to talk to you quickly about another type of bringing the paranormal home with you, because it might even be in the home that you're living in or you're renting. I, many years ago, had rented a house in Arizona with my ex-husband, Kelly. And it was a huge house at a great price. And we couldn't figure out why the heck we got this house at a great price. But we found out later that it was haunted, and it was haunted by his son, who had passed away. And he, the man was a famous author. And I think he had a difficult time with the death, as any of us would. And so he gave us let us stay at the house for a year at a really good price, because he was going abroad. And so he in a strange way kind of said that the house had unusual energy, but he didn't necessarily say that it was his son in this back room. So this house had many, many rooms, and had a really long hallway. And facing the hallway was the door to the son's bedroom, who had passed away. And then the master bedroom was to the left of it, and the bathroom was to the right of it. There was no master bathroom. You had to go across the hall to go to the bathroom. And, but who cares, right? So it was a gorgeous home, but I just had problems with that hallway. I just couldn't handle that bedroom. And so the hallway, I would get, I would get vertigo, and it felt like a fun house. And at night, late at night, if I had to get up to use the bathroom, poor Kelly, because I would roll over on him and wake him up on purpose. That way, that if I went across the hallway to the bathroom, and this spirit of this boy wanted to come and get me or whatever, drag me into the bedroom, that he would be awake and come and save me. And he would get so mad at me, but I didn't care. I was just like, no, if I need to use the bathroom, you're going to have to wake up, because I was just that scared. And I was in my early 20s, so I was a novice as far as the medicine way. Well, finally, Kelly just got really mad. He said, Rainbow, you're going to have to just confront this thing. You're just going to have to just deal with it, because I was always so scared to be in the house by myself. I didn't like it. I felt like I was being watched. So he said, you just go in there, you confront it, you go in that room, and you just talk with it, and you just deal with it. So I walked into the room, but as I would turn the handle to open the door, it was like I grabbed hold of an ice cube. So I opened the door, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so cold. I walk in, it's like, I'm in a freezer. And so he said, you need to close the door, and you just need to confront your fear. So I'm like, okay, well, just confront my fear. So I go in there, I close the door, and I literally felt like my breath, like I was constricted, like I had a corset on and I just couldn't breathe. And then I noticed that whoever was in the room was on the far corner and watching me. And all I know is that I had that fight or flight feeling, and where I felt that if I would have stayed there, that this thing would have kind of probably come into me and possessed me. And I just knew instinctively. And I knew that whatever was in there was not good. I did not like that room. I didn't like this, whatever that blob thing was. And I don't know if it was this man's son. All I know is that whatever was in that room was horrid. So I opened the door and I screamed and I ran. And he was just really upset with me. He said, I didn't confront my fear, that I let it, it won, all this stuff. And I said, okay, Mr. Brave Guy, you go in there and you do it. And so he said, okay. Then he went in there and he closed the door. And I waited, and about 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, he comes out, he closes the door, and I said, so what happened? What did you do? And he never would talk to me. He wouldn't talk about it. I said, what do you mean you don't want to talk about this? He said, I'm not talking about this. And I'm like, well, you were willing to chew me out because I couldn't handle it in there, but yet you go in there and I can't talk to you about it. And he walked out of the house and started chopping wood and wouldn't talk to me about it. And 2 weeks after that, we left. He wanted to move out of that house. So I didn't feel so bad. I didn't feel like I had failed miserably, because whatever was in there, he got a good sense of it and he just didn't want any part of it. So 2 weeks later, we were gone. So I think the reason why it's important to hear stories like this is because you have to figure out when something's worth fighting. You got to pick your battles carefully. That was not a battle or a fight that neither one of us needed. It wasn't actually our battle or our fight. I mean, if I would have bought that home, yeah, then it would have been a different story, and I would have done my best to have gotten rid of whatever that was. But I was so young, I didn't know what I was doing at that time, and I didn't want anything to do with it. So it's okay if people have to leave a home that is already haunted. Maybe like us, you didn't know, and when you don't know, you don't know. But it's okay to leave. And I don't think in those circumstances that something will go back and will come back and follow you. Most of the time they're in that home, they're already there, they're already settled, they're going to stay there. So I think that's important to understand, is that you can leave and you don't always have to fight everything that's in your home. The last thing that I want to talk to you guys about is there are old antiques that can have things that are attached to them. And sometimes those things like to attach themselves to people, and it just depends on what it is. And I think that one way that the good old incubus or succubus type of entities like to travel is through antiques. And I had an experience in Utah where Michael and I went to go visit some friends. We had a wonderful evening dinner at their house. And I think that what happened is that this entity was in a mirror, and because she had, or not a mirror, it was in a table that she had just gotten. And I think it was in that. And she told me that she had been extremely tired and exhausted all the time and didn't feel well, and just felt like she was lethargic all the time. And so I remember, and I'll never forget this, whatever was in this table latched onto me, because I went to go use the bathroom because I walked past the table. And then when I came out of the bathroom, I all of a sudden was so exhausted and so tired that I told Michael we had to go home because I wasn't feeling well. I'm like, and it just happened immediate. I'm like, what is going on here? So we go home, and Michael's like, wow, Rainbow, that's not like you to want to leave so quickly. I said, I'm just not feeling good. And he said, oh, I hope you're not coming up with something, like a cold or a flu or whatever. And I said, I don't know. But anyways, I'm talking like 5 days after that, I can't get out of bed. I quite literally, just to get up from the bed to go to the bathroom or go to the other room, hurt. It was so horrific. I just can't even tell you. I was so low on energy, and I was irritable, and I just was not a pleasant person to be around. I just felt like crap. So one morning, and I had a sense that something was sucking me dry because I'd had that experience in Egypt. So I thought, this feels like that. So one morning, I'm sleeping in the bed, Michael's gone, and the covers, which I had up to here, were slowly being pulled down. And I pretended like I was asleep because I wanted to see how far these covers would be pulled down. And I wanted to open my eyes and actually see what it was that was pulling the covers. So when the covers came down, passed down my chest, down to my waist, I sat up, I opened my eyes, and I saw it. And it was probably 3 feet tall, all hairy, with really long arms, really grotesque looking face. And it booked it, and it went right into my mirror on my vanity. And I said, "Aha, I see you." And so and when he went into the mirror, it kind of shook. And so I was like, okay, I gotcha. So what I did is I got a towel and I placed it over the mirror, or some whatever I had. I placed it over the mirror and I just turned it around. And then since I realized what had happened, I went ahead and started writing down the ceremony that I would do. And I got my sage and I got some other herbs and I sealed off my mirror. But that mirror is always going to be an open location, even though it's sealed and he can't come through. It's always going to be a portal or an opening for this thing to come, to look through anyways, look through the mirror. So I always have a bunch of stuff covering it, because once these things have a way of in and out of coming into our reality, and even though you have it sealed, you still have to block it, because then they lose interest in looking and seeing what you're doing, whatever, and they go, I guess, go pick on somebody else. But it was definitely an incubus, and this incubus was just as ugly as you can imagine. And when he pulled the covers off, it's the one time I did notice that my animals reacted to what he was doing. Because a lot of times what these things will do is when they come through, because they're so light and because they're not really a part of this reality, because they kind of walk in both worlds, they have a different kind of aura to them. They have a different kind of frequency to them. So animals, except for cats, dogs can't always pick up on them. Cats do. It doesn't matter what it is. So that's why it's always good to have a cat around, so that you know those times when if you've had a cat where it's looking all around and you're like, what are you looking at? It's seeing something. So that's why I like having cats around. They can always alert me to something being around in the room. So anyways, so I got rid of that, but that came home with me, and that was just Michael and I visiting with some good friends, people that we loved hanging with. And that just happens sometimes. So you got to think about what to do if that happens, and it does. I think the last thing I want to say is that, and it's in the pet peeve part that I started off this video with, is Ouija boards. I just don't think those are things that anybody should be playing around with. Those are portals. And just remember that there are opportunists on the other side of that Ouija board that are just waiting for somebody ignorant to open up their way into this reality. And they crowd around. And when that Ouija board is opened up by somebody who ignorantly doesn't know what they're doing, not one, but many can come through. And not all of them always go and haunt or mess with the people that let them through. They'll go off and they'll go mess with other people. Anytime you open up a portal, you don't know what's coming through the other side. And if you want to talk to spirits and you want to talk to beings, all you have to do is just listen. We have all our senses to us. The psychic sense has never left any human. We all have it. So for God's sake, just learn how to open yourself up, but learn how to close yourself off. And that's key. So any empath or psychic has to be able to block and close themselves off at any given time to make sure something doesn't come in and take up, home, either inside their bodies or around their homes. So does it mean that I haven't had experiences where things actually attached to me and came my way? It just means that I had to figure out a way how to deal with it. I think the important thing to understand is that there's so much about the paranormal that we don't understand. There's so much about this reality that we're all still trying to figure out. And we don't walk into worlds like a lot of medicine people. I know medicine people who are just so freaking amazing, who can just see things no one else can. And I have experienced things with Thunderbow where we had a lot of the supernatural happen all around us, but he was in control. And there's a lot to be said for that, because the control comes from a lot of experience of learning how to handle all this stuff. It also comes from having a lot of experiences and, sometimes making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. But don't go out looking for trouble, because that's exactly what a Ouija board is. You're just looking for trouble. And I think any of these YouTube and reality shows that actually use Ouija boards are asking for trouble, not just for themselves, but forever for the location where they're opening up the portals. Because once the portal is open, then these things can come through. Now, I'm a realist, and I don't believe that just because you open up a portal with these Ouija boards that you can't close it off. I don't think that just because somebody doesn't end the session correctly, that that's it. It's open forever. I don't believe that, and I know that's not true. Anybody can close off whatever's opened up with that Ouija board, but whoever does it has to do it with authority, and they have to do it with the knowing that they're not putting with any crap. They're getting rid of whatever is coming through, because we have dominion in this reality. When you're born into the frequency of this earth, you have dominion here. So we are born with Earth's frequency. And because of that, that gives us the right to say, hey, you got to book it. You got to leave. So just remember that if you've experienced something that has come into your home through a Ouija board, you just have to get a group of people together, and you all have to close up the portal and tell whatever came through, it has to go back. And that's it has to go back. But you have to know with certainty, and you have to know without doubting and fearing that it's not true. Because anytime that you tell something it has to go and you're scared, it's not going to go. It's just like if a bear comes up to your doorway, and you have the door open, and you're screaming at the bear to go. Maybe the sound of your voice might make it run, or maybe the sound of your voice might make it stand up, and it may not go, or it might just stay there and just look at you like, why is this human yelling? So because we don't know what it is exactly that we're afraid of, we don't know exactly what it is that is making that noise. What we have to do is we have to just realize that we do have control in this reality. So that's my kitty who is scratching at the window. So what I'm going to do is end this with a couple shows that I do like on YouTube. And the first one is Franco TV. I love Franco. And Foreman 04. And they have the Paranormal Nightmare and the Living Dead Paranormal series on YouTube. I think they're on Amazon. I love those guys. I think they're phenomenal. So Franco, I love him, and I love the Foreman brothers. If you guys want to check out some really good paranormal shows, the guys who are really good at what they do, I recommend those guys. So thank you for listening to me today. And if you have any questions on any of this, please feel free to email us at dimensionalwalking@gmail.com. And then we'll contact everybody. We'll get back in contact with you. And if you have any questions or whatever, because I like to talk to people who've had experiences like I have. I think it's good for us to get together and kind of swap stories and talk about stuff. So anyways, thank you for listening to me. You guys take care, and we will talk real soon. I believe Michael's going to be coming up next with a video. And I don't know what he's coming up with, but it should be pretty exciting. So take care. God bless. Thank you for watching. If you can, give me a thumbs up. If you want to, leave me a message or comment down below. So take care, and we'll talk soon. And yeah, so that's it. So that's all for now. So take care. Bye-bye.